This is a project I've done with fifth grade students where they put their knowledge of symmetry and repeating patterns into a practical use. So this ends up being part of the unit on the Western expansion that I did with a social studies teacher. The first thing students need to do is to create their beading pattern. They can do this at nativetech.org. When looking at the area given to make the pattern, your students are going to want to use the whole 24 bead width given. Don't let them do it. They really need to keep it between 6 and 12 beads, and 12 is even kind of stretching it. When they start working with it, the actual beading, they're going to figure out that that's a mistake right away. So make sure that when you check their patterns, that it is no bigger, no more wide than 12 beads in width. Your students will also want to make their name as part of the pattern, and that's okay if they at least repeat it once or do a flip of their name so it appears backwards. Because this is a repeating pattern or symmetry pattern, and that's the whole goal of it. So you have to remind them of that as they are working with it when you start seeing them do their name as it. I want them to have ownership, but they also still have to follow the guidelines of the project. Once students have finished making their design on the website and they have had it approved by you, they need to make a printout out of it because that's what they're going to be following when they do the actual beading. Some of the supplies that the students need are a cardboard box. I think a shoe box with a lid is the best thing because then it's easier for storage in your classroom and have them like stacked up. That's what I did. And then you need some yarn. Any yarn will do, doesn't even matter about the color. You need a pair of scissors and some very large pony beads. So you need one more string than the actual amount of beads in the width. So if it has 6 beads in width, you need 7 strings. If it's 8 beads in width, you need 9 strings. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take one string, one piece of yarn that's about 1 meter to 2 meters in length, and that's what goes off on the end. And then you take a piece of regular tape and you make it like a shoestring, as so. And then all you do is you look at your pattern, and whatever the width is, that's what you string up on your string. And then you pull the string underneath what looks like, violin or guitar strings hanging across your cardboard box, and you pull it through. So right now, that string is on top, and so you're pulling it through the pony bead as you've pushed it through the pair of violin strings, and you're stringing it through the top so that when you let go of it, it holds it in place. And you do that through all the strings. See how it's holding it in place? So I push up and then I pull the shoestring through. And once I've gotten it through, then I'm going to gently pull it through. And then I push them together, one row with the other, and then I have to tighten. This is the part where when they're getting towards the end of their project, where if they haven't been tightening it, it looks not quite as nice. So I walked around and I made sure that they were tightening, and then sometimes I help them tighten if um, they've gone through a couple of rows and they haven't done it. So I'll actually take the time and I'll go through and I'll tighten through for them so it looks nice at the end. By the way, your kids will actually love doing this project, believe it or not. Even the boys. The boys actually really got into doing it. It's a lot of hands-on. And students nowadays really don't do enough of it. They're used to playing games on their iPads and such, but really not working with their hands. And so this allows for more dexterity in their fingers. They're building patterns. They're going to figure out mistakes and how to deal with mistakes. And, another thing is, kids need to learn how to fix something that didn't come out right. And so one of the frequent problems is that they'll put a row in and then all of a sudden figure out, shoot, I missed a bead, or I put too many beads, or I did the pattern wrong. And so, you encourage them to figure out how to fix it. And it's not about leaving them to flounder. It's about, suggesting something and then working with that person to fix it in a rational way. And one of the ways that we fix beading problems is that if you pull off one of what I call the violin strings, you can pull out a bead without actually taking the whole thing apart. So it's creative responses on how to fix something. Also, don't be too judgmental on what they're making. It's their project. It's giving them ownership. And that was one of the things I always did in my classroom is, I did as much of the projects in the classroom as possible rather than sending it home to be done. Because if you send it home to be done, the kid isn't doing the project. It's the parents at that point. And I never graded too harshly on what I knew was a student-made project. So it's one of those things to keep in mind as you are doing this project with them. As they're working on their beading, if they start running out of string, what you're just going to do is you'll cut another slit on the side of the box and you'll just hang it off the edge, and then you'll cut more string and hook it on the edge as well, and then just keep going. And then when you're done, you'll just end up tying those two strings in a knot. I would wait until you're totally finished before doing that though. I mean, you can do it ahead of time, but it's harder to deal with the knot and you won't get it to be as tight. So I would just hook it off on the edge, start a new one, and then keep beading along. It's not a big deal because some of your kids will go, we're running out of string, I don't know what to do. It's not that big of a deal. Students will not be able to finish this in one class period. So they're going to need about a week to get this done, I would say. And they'll be able to do it during their free period. So while you're working on other things and some kids finish earlier than others, they can pull out their box and they can continue working on it. The beads will be able to be stored in the box as well as their pattern. And as long as they have a lid, they'll all stack very nicely in a smaller area of the classroom. I'm not a clutter person, so everything was very neat and organized in my room. So trust me, it'll all fit nicely in one corner of the room where it's kind of out of the way. I would have students write their names on the side of the box, although most of them can recognize which box is theirs, but still it makes for less confusion. And yes, you're going to have pony beads on the floor. You'll find them all year long. I know I did. Doesn't matter how much I swept. I always end up finding pony beads somewhere. It's kind of like glitter. It's the same thing, but I love doing projects, so that's what we did. And I dealt with it. Okay, so as you're probably starting to notice, I'm getting faster with this the more rows that I'm adding. Your kids will too. And after like the first couple of rows, your kids really are not going to need your help, hardly at all, except for when, they figure out a major mistake has happened or something knotted and they kind of need your help in fixing it. But really, they don't need your help and they don't really even really want it, to be honest. They'll ask you for your help when we come to the end of it, where we're lifting it out of the loom. As you can see, I have completed my pattern, and now it's time to get it off of the loom. So all I'm going to do is really a series of square knots. That's all I'm doing. And that's just to keep the beads at both the beginning and the end from coming off of the loom, which it can happen, but it won't as soon as I knot it. So I do a simple square knot, and your kids can do whatever kind of knot they want. It really makes no difference. And so I just take a couple of strings and do a square knot. And then I do it all the way around. Your kids will want to actually wear them, even some of your boys. Hard to believe, but true, and I let them. It's theirs, it's ownership. But before they actually get to walk around and wear them, I actually grade them. It is a simple grading thing. Did you match your finished beading project with your pattern? If you did, you got all your points.